Hey, Terry. All right. Well, happy Saturday, Central Georgia. It's Meteorologist Ansley Parker here, and we're taking an extended look at the forecast once again today. We're going to be doing it again tomorrow because for the first time in a while, we actually have some changes on the way. So I know we've been talking about heat, sunshine, and just kind of some really, really warm days for the last couple of days. Today, a big change is in store, not only in the skies, but also in how things feel outside. The numbers are going to be dropping, and we're going to be having some increased rain chances through the weekend and into the early work week as well. So actually, it's a little bit silly, but I am really excited to talk about the weather today, and it's because we're going to paint a picture together, and it's going to make a lot of sense once we kind of get to the end of it together. So what I'm really going to do is give you a peek behind the forecast and kind of tell you why things are shaping up the way that they are, and hopefully give you a little bit of a better understanding of kind of just the whole atmosphere as a whole as it stands in our area. So we'll start off like we always do, taking a look at the sky cams, and these paint a really good picture of the story for the rest of the day kind of here, because what's happening is you can probably see clear skies across 3 out of 4 of the sky cams, or maybe clear but a couple of clouds embedded within there. There is a very cloudy scene in downtown Macon. So this is really going to kind of help us by leading into what we're going to be talking about today, which is the wedge pattern. You've heard us talk about this before. You've heard us say backdoor front. That's kind of the same thing. So what's happened is it's kind of set up already in downtown Macon, but not quite in places like Warner Robins, Perry, and downtown Dublin. So that's why there's some sunnier skies over in those areas, not quite as much here in downtown Macon. And there's going to be a lot of other factors that we're going to turn to that will say the same thing. So in terms of the overall story for today, what probably jumps out at you the most when we talk about this graphic is the high temperature for the day. 87 degrees is going to be the high, which is about 10 degrees cooler than yesterday, and we're only getting cooler as we head into tomorrow and the early work week as well. So really cool numbers are going to be probably the most notable thing about the forecast. But then also we do have some scattered showers and some storms that are going to be on the way this afternoon as well. That's also going to be dependent on kind of the wedge pattern also. So that's a look at your day planner for the day, but let's talk a little bit more about specifics. What's setting up in our area, why, and then what can we expect for the rest of the weekend. So here's your satellite and radar picture, kind of big picture showing you there's a little bit of activity happening across the southeast, at least more than we've had for a couple of days. Now I'm drawing your attention to this kind of almost spinning area off the coast here. As of 8 a.m. this morning, the National Hurricane Center did decide to go ahead and mark this as an area of potential tropical development. So I'm going to be talking about this kind of at the end of the stream here after we get through our weather pattern. The good news is kind of just to give you a little bit of a heads up, not really many impacts expected for us here, but we will talk about this region here in just a minute. But like I said, we're going to start with central Georgia. So in our area right now, you can see a couple of clouds out there. Again, heavier cloud cover further towards the north and the eastern counties, and even a couple of showers that have kind of spurred up in some of this thicker cloud cover, mainly in our northern counties. So the lightest of showers, maybe not even noticeable, heading out of Putnam County into Hancock County. And that seems to be the only area of rain we have in our specific area, at least at the moment. One thing that the wedge has not kind of broken up in our area is the moisture. So the air outside, still really humid, still really oppressive. We've got dew points in the mid 70s, even an 80-degree dew point down there in Crisp County. So there's still plenty of humidity out there. But where we'll start to notice the wedge building in is in terms of temperature. So I show you this to kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. The wedge is that northeasterly flow that we get coming in again from the northeast. So you can see where it's kind of locked things in already in a couple spots. Augusta, Athens, and Atlanta are only sitting in the mid 70s. Now here in Macon, we're in the low 80s, and then down in our southern counties, we're in the mid to upper 80s. So a little bit of a temperature spread, again, due to where the wedge has built in and where it quite hasn't just yet. So our northeastern counties are kind of on the edge of this wedge pattern here. We're talking seeing temperatures in the upper 70s, maybe low 80s in a couple of spots. Down towards our west and our southwestern counties, the wedge has really not set up just yet. So the numbers are able to climb a little bit higher. We're seeing mid 80s here. It's likely that our southern counties and kind of our western counties could get a touch warmer. I still think everybody's going to stay cooler than the past couple of days, and I still think upper 80s maybe low 90s if some of these areas end up getting enough sunshine today. What's going to be the driving factor for keeping the southwestern counties cooler will be the rain that we're going to have for later today, and there's going to be plenty of it, probably setting up here within the next couple of hours. So these temperatures won't really have the chance to climb much higher. Areas like the northeastern counties will be locked in with the wedge before too long. So I keep saying this word. Before we get too much further, let's talk a little bit more about what in the world the wedge is. It's a simple and quick explanation. When a high pressure system sets up further to our northeast, it ends up sending a clockwise flow, a northeasterly breeze, down in our direction. Now what ends up happening is the Appalachian Mountains kind of funnel this towards the Atlanta and central Georgia area. So it ends up getting stuck in our region for a little bit of time, dependent on how long this high pressure is here, dependent on other features in the area like the low pressure system that's off towards the coast. Right now we're going to be locked under this for a couple of days, but it really depends on how far the wedge pattern sets up into our area. So this is actually a current winds map, but the coloring of this map does a really good job showing where the wedge has set up and where it hasn't just yet. So we have our high pressure system, again, that's funneling that clockwise flow down into our region. So it's pushing cooler air our way, and it's pushing the warm air that we have in our area up into the air, which is causing us to have a couple of showers where this has already set up. But if we talk about our specific central Georgia region, notice just on the colors in the map, it's kind of only grabbing onto mainly our north and eastern counties here at the moment. So our south and western counties, not really under the influence of this just yet. This is going to be a really key component to the forecast here for two reasons. The first reason is that this, wherever this boundary ends up landing throughout the day today, is going to be a good kind of front for activity to start to bubble up in the form of showers and thunderstorms. So similar to how we have a cold front that will push things up into the air and cause some showers and thunderstorms to get fired up, this kind of frontal boundary can act as the same type of thing. The second reason that this is important is because this will continue pushing across our area as we go throughout the day tomorrow, and that will play a role on how cool the temperatures are heading into tomorrow. So to kind of show you what I mean in terms of the severe weather potential there, the Storm Prediction Center has done a really good job making my job easy there. You can see where the wedge, or where they anticipate the wedge kind of already being set up, and where it hasn't. The Storm Prediction Center says, okay, anywhere that's kind of south and west of where the wedge has set up has a chance to have a storm or two that could get a little bit gusty or have some hail. I'm not necessarily talking about anything in the way of widespread severe weather. It's just a chance, kind of like the last couple of days, for a storm to maybe get a little bit spicy or two. So that is the level 1 of 5 risk from the Storm Prediction Center, but that's the reason that it kind of excludes our northeastern counties here. It all depends on where that wedge boundary actually ends up setting up for the rest of the day today. You can see that even when we flip it over to the future view here. Some light to sometimes steady rain in the areas where the wedge has set up. Further towards the south, mainly south and west of I-16, that's where we're expecting to see more thunderstorm activity. Again, nothing in the way of widespread severe weather. I really want to emphasize that, but this is where the chances are better for a storm or two to reach strong to maybe severe criteria. Again, you can just see that as we play that over the next couple of hours. And then as we head into the overnight hours, the hope here is that the wedge will keep settling across our area and transition most of these thunderstorms over to a light to maybe sometimes steady rain. Now, the thing with the wedge is we're not really going to lose the rain in the overnight hours. It may kind of taper off to a light rain, but we'll keep the chance to have some showers throughout the overnight hours tonight and to kick off Sunday as well. So Sunday will be a bit of a dreary start to the day, probably for everybody, and there will be a chance for just on and off showers throughout the day, all day on Sunday. So you can kind of see that on the future view here. Although this is a brand new model run, I'm seeing this in real time at the exact same time as you. It shows less coverage of those showers, but with the wedge pattern, on and off rain, honestly probably pesky rain where it's a bit irritating, is possible throughout the day on Sunday. We'll carry this pattern over one more day into Monday. Again, you can still see the chance for a couple of showers, maybe a few storms in there, but honestly we're probably mostly talking about rain on the day Monday, and then this pattern sticks with us for Tuesday as well. So kind of a lot of rain chances for the next couple of days, mainly driven by our wedge pattern, but that's not the only thing that's going to be driving it. This will stick with us again Monday, Tuesday, likely all the way through maybe even Wednesday and Thursday. We just have increased rain chances because of also a stationary boundary that's in our area. The rain chances do look like they'll start to taper off. I know that this map doesn't necessarily look any different than the first couple of days, but the hope here is that the features that are driving all this rain will eventually be moving on, and then we'll be talking about clearer, but still with a rain chance, weather for the end of the work week and hopefully by the time we climb into next weekend. So a lot of rain in the forecast, at least for the next couple of days. How much are we talking? Well, I don't want you to get too locked in on exact locations of this map here. It's kind of going to be sporadic today. We're talking mainly scattered showers, on and off rain in a lot of spots. So county by county, there's not necessarily going to be a huge distinction between I really think these areas are going to see this much versus these areas. But widespread, there is a good chance to tack on some pretty good rainfall totals over the next couple of days. Not confident that it's going to be all the way up to 6 inches of rain, but we definitely could see anywhere between 1 inch to 3 inches in some of the heavier spots. Now, this would be a welcome change because if we turn towards the drought monitor, now this gets updated every Tuesday. As of last Tuesday, or this past Tuesday, we started to creep into the abnormally dry category on the drought monitor. July has been an abnormally dry month, despite the fact that it seems like we've had everyday showers. They haven't had good coverage, and the areas that have seen them, again, haven't really seen a ton of rain. So it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to have a little bit of a rainy stretch here, give us a boost to kick off August. So hopefully we can leave the abnormally dry conditions in the rear view. Not only will the rain chances be a good thing for just the rain chances themselves, but it's also going to do a really, really big downtick to our numbers. So yesterday's high was 96 degrees. You saw the day planner. I'm forecasting a high of 87 degrees today, almost 10 degrees cooler, and it's well below average for this time of year. In fact, creeping close, not necessarily at, but close to the, excuse me, I'm sorry, I just got so turned around. I was saying the overnight low I was thinking was the record, but it's actually not. The record low would be 60 degrees. The overnight lows will probably stay close to average, right around 72 degrees. So the overnight lows won't take a huge dip, but the afternoon highs definitely will. We'll stay pretty far away from the record high of 105 degrees. In fact, the rain chances will be so prevalent, the cloud cover will be so heavy that we're forecasting 80s for the next 7 days. When I flip over the 7-day forecast, you will only see 80s, no 90s in sight. So we'll get our first taste of that today, start to creep into the upper 80s. And then as we head into Sunday and the wedge builds in a little bit further, we're going to climb all the way into the low 80s. We'll keep the low 80s around to kick off the work week as well. Again, increased rain chances will help with that. The rain cooled air and then just all the northeasterly flow that we're going to get over the next couple of days will just keep us locked in. And it's really hard to believe, but to kick off August, we will just keep the 80s around at least for the next couple of days. Now, we have to talk a little bit about the tropics here. This is somewhat related to the rain chances that we're going to see over the next couple of days. So if you remember, a cold front kind of swept through our area yesterday, throughout the day yesterday, and has since stalled out, maybe just over central Georgia or just south of central Georgia. I'm going to show you a visual on that here in just a second. But what this frontal boundary has done has interacted with an area of showers and storms and now could potentially produce a low pressure system that has chances of tropical development. So the National Hurricane Center has gone ahead and highlighted this entire region here, expecting the low pressure system to develop somewhere off the southeastern coast, off the coast of North Carolina, and then push further out east-northeastward into the Atlantic Ocean. Now this has low chances of development over the next couple of days. Only a 10% chance over the next 2 days and only a 20% chance over the next 7 days. And the even better news with that is regardless of its development, the impacts look to be pretty low here in the United States because you'll notice this is only getting further away from us here. So actually the worst of what we could see from this system in our area and in the U.S. entirely will probably happen between today and tomorrow. And what I'm talking about is increased rainfall. Notice how this system kind of tries to organize as it continues pushing east-northeastward into the Atlantic. You can see kind of the spiral here trying to form as it continues to push over these warm waters in the coming days. Again, we could be looking at tropical development, but you'll notice really not expected to impact any land masses, especially here in the United States. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But I mentioned that it could have a bit of an impact in terms of rain chances in our area. That's because that cold front that pushed through our area yesterday has kind of stalled out and become a stalled stationary boundary just south of our area. So what this is doing is providing the fuel for the showers and storms that we're going to have throughout today and throughout tomorrow. So if we kind of flip this over to the future view in our area, imagine the stationary boundary just kind of south of here, and you can see how it attaches to that area of showers and storms and ends up pushing some activity from the south into our region. This is throughout today and likely throughout tomorrow. It will continue to provide the fuel for showers and storms in our area. Now, as we head into the work week, we'll be fueled a bit more by this wedge pattern, so not necessarily expecting to see a ton of influence from that boundary after that, but definitely through the weekend, it's going to keep our rain chances increased. Now, if we do see this system continue to develop and become a named storm, it will be the 4th named storm of the season. We've only had 3 so far, all of which have been tropical storms. So it would claim the name Dexter. That would be the next one on the list. And overall, we're expecting to see an increase in activity as we head into the month of August here. You can see we tend to take a pretty big jump up from July to August in hurricane frequency and tropical storm frequency. Not only that, but we tend to see our first named hurricane of the season during the month of August. On average, that occurs right around August 11th. Now, we also tend to see the most activity between the months of August to October. On average, that's about 11 to 12 named storms. And when we take a look at how many storms we're expecting to see, that is a really good chunk of the hurricane season. So again, we're expecting an above average hurricane season here. If we saw 11 to 12 named storms between August to October, that would be a good chunk of this hurricane season. So if you start to see an increase in activity here in the coming weeks, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of right on time. We're expecting to see less influence of Saharan dust, which tends to just dry out the air when tropical systems are trying to develop. Not only that, but the ocean waters kind of reach their peak of warmth. They've been warming all summer, and now they've got really, really warm water to interact with these systems. Also, there tends to be less wind shear, which can tear apart tropical systems. So the tropical waves, they just have a lot more to work with as we push into the month of August, and that's why the peak of the season tends to be right around September. So not necessarily expecting to see impacts from that system, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a touch base with hurricane season right now. And here's a look at your 7-day forecast. So in our area, we still have plenty to talk about and be excited about. If you've been sick of the cooler temperatures, of the warm temperatures, I'm talking about temperatures that climb down into the 80s, not only today and tomorrow, but for the next 7 days as well. The rain chances again will be up through the weekend and kind of sticking around up into the early work week. Also, a couple storms are possible today, mainly areas that are outside of the wedge. And showers and storms will kind of just continue into the early work week until things start to taper off towards the mid to end portions of next week. So kind of a lot to talk about in the forecast there, but all things said and done, it really just means we're kind of talking about a dreary weekend here with on and off rain and a couple of storm chances, mainly Saturday. Storm chances likely tapering off a bit as we head into Sunday. So if you're a fan of the cooler temperatures, hopefully this is a forecast for you. If you're somebody like myself who enjoys reading and having an excuse to kind of chill inside, this is going to be a rainy weekend to kind of do that. So hopefully that gives you some perspective. We will do another touch base tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. as opposed to 11 a.m. right after we come off the air, 13 WMAZ. Right here, we'll kind of talk more about what you can expect to see in the forecast. We'll talk more about the progression of the wedge, where it stands tomorrow, and then what you can expect to see in terms of rain chances and in terms of just temperatures over the next couple of days. So we'll check on the progression of the wave or the wedge. We'll talk more about that potential tropical wave in the area and just generally do another pulse check of the forecast tomorrow morning. Again, that's at 10 a.m. as opposed to 11 a.m. this morning. If you're looking for more weather content throughout today, maybe you need a radar check or just curious where things stand in our area, you can also access our 24/7 radar right here on 13 WMAZ Plus. That'll be in your watch carousel at the bottom of your screen. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you stay dry today and enjoy some of the cooler temperatures. I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 10 a.m.